We're finally reaching the end of the Best of 2024 list for the Game Wisdom Awards, and today we have RPGs. Now, for those of you who watch a channel, you know that we typically don't play a lot of them. This is an action, very reflex-driven channel. So let me just check this list here and see just how many of them did I play. Oh my goodness. How did I play so many RPGs in 1 year? Well, I guess that's good for you. So this will be my favorite games for people who enjoy stats, turn-based, buffs, debuffs, and all that other great stuff. Jokes aside, this was a very surprising year in terms of just the sheer number of RPG or RPG-style games that I had a chance to play. And while, again, I did miss out on one of the bigger games with Metaphor, hopefully we'll be able to rectify that in 2025. So, the first game on my list is going to be Dream Tactics. So this is in the strategy RPG side, which again, this is one of the big things I was having trouble with when I was coming up with this list. Do we put an SRPG in the strategy column, or do we put in the RPG column? Do we create a brand new category to extend this list indefinitely? Let me know what you guys think about that down below. But Dream Tactics is a very solid SRPG. While it's not going to be the game that's going to wow you in terms of look and overall, brain-melting tactics, it does a great job in terms of presentation and kind of letting the player build out their own strategies through play. Each character gets access to different cards. These cards can be further augmented based on their gear, and you're free to mix and match whatever is in your current deck pools for each character. So you are going to be battling in linear arenas with, fixed enemies, but how you approach things is going to be very different, and I like kind of the interplay between the different characters. Your main character can put enemies and allies to sleep, which will augment the abilities of other cards, letting them do more damage, do more healing, etc., etc. Another character can get powered up by picking up carrots that they can place down on the field, while another one gains abilities based on which mode they're in, with certain cards kind of shifting them from A to B. The game is one of those titles where it starts out very simple, and I think for a lot of people who play this, they probably played the first 3 or 4 battles, thought, yeah, okay, that's it, then they stopped playing, never to return to it again. But getting past the first chapter, which I think admittedly did feel a little bit long in that respect, the world begins to open up with giving you multiple places to explore, additional options for progression and powering up, and the different gear operating as side grades and kind of build definers is fantastic. If you are an SRPG fan and looking for one that is not going to tax you in terms of overwhelming complexity, then I highly recommend you check this one out because I think it does deserve more eyes on it. So let's say you are a fan of that number crunching complexity when it comes to your tactical gameplay. You want all the stats, buffs, debuffs, pushing, pulling enemies, and all that great stuff. Well, my next pick is going to be just that for you with Kingsvein from developer Rad Codex. They've been putting over the last decade a lot of high-concept RPG-style games. Their previous one, I think it was Horizon's Gate. It actually was kind of like an open-world, pirate RPG. Kingsvein is a more kind of streamlined that approach. You're stuck to a single kingdom, but it's a strange world with unusual creatures, and you're given kind of the freedom to explore, see how high and how far you can punch up, level up your characters, have full reign in terms of how they will progress, which skills you want to apply to them, which gear you give them, and then get into a variety of turn-based tactical combat with them. This is one of those titles that it can be a bit overwhelming at the start. They do not really hold your hand outside the first 2 battles. And you're going to have to learn very quickly, okay, how exactly am I going to build my party? Who's going to be the buffer? Who will be pushing, pulling? Do I just ignore them and just go for running with a heavy sword and smacking things? You can even upgrade, level up your mount, who becomes an active party member in combat. This is, again, one of those games that it's going to start out very deep, and it's only going to get more advanced from there. I would put Kingsvein more on the advanced side if you're an SRPG fan. And if you have not heard of Rad Codex before, and you enjoy Kingsvein, I highly recommend you check out their other titles. Each one is completely standalone and focuses on different elements of SRPG design, and they're all certainly worth it to play if you're looking for, again, a more advanced take on this gameplay. Our next two picks go for more of the kind of modern retro, but with some unique distinctions between them. First up is Flowstone Saga. This is a JRPG by way of Tetris. You must use your ability to match or fill up rows and lines in order to save the land, beat up the bad guys, and level up. Now, the important thing about Flowstone Saga is that while it does require and have a lot of the elements and strategies of Tetris, this is not just straight up Tetris gameplay. You get different abilities, you have kind of different, like, quote-unquote classes that can influence what is going to be your overall strategy, how you clear your rows and lines. Of course, different gear, different spells and passives, and it does a great job, again, of kind of bridging this gap. If you are the most hardcore, super grand master at Tetris, you'll be able to do pretty well in this game. If you're like me and you suck at Tetris, then there's enough additional abilities and kind of specific classes that you can use that you can get around not having to worry about making that perfect, 5 line and 5 rows completely set up. The game is one of those titles that once you kind of play like the first 20-30 minutes of it, you'll kind of get the lay of the land as to what the majority of the gameplay is going to be, but it still introduces additional elements, additional puzzles, and so on to mix things up. I would definitely recommend this one. This is another one of those kind of like sleeper hit style games. If it works for you, you're going to find an enjoyable game, and I think it does enough to kind of, again, be that connecting bridge for someone who likes a Tetris or that kind of puzzle style gameplay, and someone who's looking for a JRPG with, again, combat, spells. In this case, your spells are just going to be about getting all those lines filled in. So another really great recommendation and another very original game that we had a chance to play this year. Our next game may lack the modern bells and whistles of some of the other games that are going to be on the list, but it's still a very competent and very solid dungeon crawler with Scarmonde. This one is kind of your classic dungeon crawler. There's a big dungeon, you have a party of adventurers, connect A and B together and see what happens. What makes it get on this list is the amount of depth there is to the party creation and skill dynamics. You're able to create a party however you see fit from a very wide assortment of classes, and then you can further customize things based on what skills you give them, what's going to be your overall play style, and the game features a healthy mix of gear that kind of promotes or encourages specific plays. So there's a lot more dynamic here in terms of party composition and gear that we normally don't see. And this is all done, again, in the aesthetic of the old school Final Fantasy, again, really old school, Final Fantasy 1 in particular. I would not say Scarmonde is a good game if you are completely new to dungeon crawling and that specific style of gameplay, as it does kind of throw you into the Lion's Den very early on. But if you're like me and you have done all your Etrian Odysseying, your Labyrinth of Refraining, and looking for another take on dungeon crawling, then I highly recommend you play this one. I do hope we see more from this developer and more in this style to kind of take the dungeon crawling gameplay in a very slightly, but still, new direction. If you prefer the Wild West and the open world compared to dungeon diving, then my next pick, Arco, is going to be just for you. Another game that kind of falls on that line between being a strategy RPG or a tactical RPG or where it can fit, but it's a very original take featuring combat where turns are basically about half a second to a full second at a time, and you have to dictate, okay, where bullets are going to go, where am I going to dodge, what am I going to do for the next half second. The game is told across 3 different characters with different plots of revenge. The world is as beautiful as it is kind of dark and mysterious, and there's bonus challenges to go after, different morality choices, and you are once again free to build your party however you see fit. Another title like the ones so far that we've mentioned, where you're going to kind of get the lay of the land very early on, and then it's going to expand out from there. I really enjoyed this one, and we saw it all the way through to its bittersweet conclusion. If you are a tactical strategy or, strategy RPG fan, and you're looking for a very stylized and very different take on it, then I definitely recommend you at least give this demo a try and see if it will work out for you. As I said at the start of our video, I had to choose between which one of two very big RPGs to play in 2024, and I went with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. As a huge fan of the series, and really enjoying RGG's take on JRPG design, and we went through the whole thing, both on and off stream, and it is definitely one of my favorites from the year. It still just boggles my mind with how well they've transitioned into making a turn-based combat and JRPG design feel very approachable and very engaging, considering how great they are at making very lengthy cutscenes and impressive characterizations and storytelling. The Infinite Wealth is a warning to how much there is to this game, with multiple sub-games, sub-stories, mini-quests, mini-games, lots of things for you to do on top, again, of the pressing matters of the story. And if you are a long-time Yakuza fan, the story is going to probably make you cry very manly tears by the end of it. The improvements that they've done to their formula are very impressive, again, considering this is technically only their second game. I've seen RPGs from established studios and, hardcore fans that don't feel as polished or as engaging to play as this one was. The improvements of the job system with skill inheritance, the fact that you can now kind of quasi-move your characters around just enough to set up AoE and line-based attacks, on top again of the variety of characters, all the gear and so on you can craft, refine, further customize, there is a lot to this game all the way around. If you are a fan of the previous Like a Dragon or the previous Yakuza games and you have not played this one, then it is very high in terms of my recommendation. If you're completely new, however, I still think that the first game, or the previous Like a Dragon, may be a good entry point to its design just so you can get the stories down, but the gameplay is so much more improved and balanced in Infinite Wealth that it may just be worth it for you to just go straight to that one if you are new. But for fans, what do you think about that? Do you think that Infinite Wealth kind of invalidates the previous game, or is the previous Like a Dragon still, able to stand on its own 2 feet to be kind of a very welcome introduction? Nevertheless, a very fantastic JRPG, and definitely going to be like ride or die with RGG for whatever their next game is, which at the time of recording this is going to be a pirate-themed adventure with Majima. So we'll probably be playing that one, and we'll see if it makes it to the list for 2025. But again, phenomenal game, and easily one of my favorites from 2024, and at some point we'll see if I can get a hold of Metaphor, and see how that one stacks up. And with that, the RPG list is done. Again, this is not normally a channel that plays a lot of RPGs, a lot of story-driven games, but we got to play quite a very diverse and very great mix of them for 2024, and I know that I missed quite a bit as well. So for you watching, do you have a favorite RPG, JRPG, CRPG, whatever RPG out there? Let me know down in the comments, and especially if it's one that plays differently or does something unique or original compared to the other ones out there. And with that, just 2 more categories to go before we reach Best of Show, which, fingers crossed, we will get this done by the end of this week. Thanks for watching, keep on doing your RPGing and leveling up, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.